What if Sonic Underground was canon? Chapter 1. Someday. G'day everyone, Rune here, and this is the start of a new What If on this channel inspired by one of Sonic's many animated shows. Sonic Underground is a very little known animated series that features Sonic being the prince of what is called Mobius and being a triplet alongside his brother Manic and sister Sonia. The show only had one season and is a victim of the very menaces that have plagued such Sonic games as Sonic 06 and Forces, understaffing, and rushed production. This resulted in Sonic Underground having janky animation, messy writing, and a lot of characters of the week. As a result, the series was massively panned and was cancelled after only one season. Despite this, I really enjoyed watching this series back in high school because I was so fascinated by the concept and world. So I was really disappointed when I found out that the show had been cancelled after episode 40, resulting in the story that I had been so fascinated by never being completed. But what if this animated series wasn't a strange, messy, but very entertaining offshoot, but actually canon to the Sonic games? That is the idea I want to explore in this series. With all of that out of the way, let's begin the story. We start the story many years in the past, before the Sonic Underground show or the games occur. In the archipelago kingdom of Mobius, esteemed scientist Dr. Ivo Robotnik applies for the position of Royal Scientist, a position that was previously held by his grandfather Gerald Robotnik before he had been forced to leave the position due to his granddaughter Maria's medical condition. Due to both his supposed accomplishments and his grandfather's good name, he is accepted as the Royal Scientist. Little do the royal family know how big of a mistake this will end up being. Sometime later, Queen Alina ascends to the throne alongside her husband, and they have triplets, 2 boys and a girl. They name these children Sonia, Sonic, and Manic. At the babies' presentation to the Mobian people, the royal family all wear their respective medallions. Alina's being a heart, the king's being a violin, Sonic's a guitar, Sonia's a keyboard, and Manic's a drum set. While the children are still newly born, their father is called off to settle a matter on one of their borders, taking Dr. Robotnik with him, believing the man's knowledge and skills to be invaluable to the mission. However, it is only Robotnik that returns, bringing the king's medallion and telling his queen that he'd fallen in battle, protecting him from a sea monster that had attacked the party. However, this will soon be shown for the lie that it is. For the very next year, Dr. Robotnik launches his attack on Mobotropolis, forcing Alina to flee with her children, lest they be captured by the traitor or killed. Hiding away out of fear for her children, Alina can do nothing but watch as Robotnik turns her kingdom into a nightmare, turning any and all who oppose him into mindless robots, while others choose to side with the usurper in order to save themselves. For several months, Alina remains in hiding with her sons and daughter, until she's visited by the Oracle of Delphius, an ageless anteater with the power of prophecy among other things. Wanting to aid the kind queen, he tells her a prophecy that will lead to Robotnik's defeat at the hands of her and her children. However, for this prophecy to come to pass, she must separate her children, allowing them to be raised by 3 different families. Only this way would they not only be safely hidden from Robotnik, but would they gain the skills they will need to one day reclaim their kingdom. And so, even though it breaks her heart, Alina does just that, leaving her children in the care of 3 families that the Oracle had directed her to. Sonic is left with a working-class couple who recognize the young prince instantly. Recognizing that their current home in the city is not safe for the boy, especially with their connections to the already forming resistance, they soon move to the countryside. When Alina attempts to leave Sonia with a widowed noblewoman she'd known for years, she is caught by the very same woman. Inviting the queen inside, out of sight of any possibly passing SWAT bots, Lady Windermere asks what's going on. Not wanting to put Windermere in any more danger than necessary, Alina doesn't tell Windermere about the prophecy. instead opting to tell her that she's decided to put her children into hiding in hopes that they will be safer from Robotnik. Windermere easily agrees to care for Sonia and raise her as though she were her own, assuring Alina that she will protect the child with her life. Manik is the last to be placed in hiding and is the most confusing from Alina's perspective. The family the Oracle directed her towards isn't one she's familiar with, and their home is right at the edge between the working district and the slums that have begun to form since Robotnik's takeover. But this is where the Oracle directed her, so for the sake of her children, she needs to do this. As she runs from the basket her youngest sleeps in, she doesn't notice the rat in rugged clothes taking the basket before the residents of the home can answer the door. Later, this very same rat will deliver this basket to the large beetle leader of the band of thieves, believing it to be filled with food or money, only to be smacked upside the head by the leader Feral as it's revealed that what he stole isn't money or food, but a baby. Years pass and the children grow happy and healthy in their new families, developing their own quirks and skills. While Sonia is raised among the upper class, becoming adept at navigating the minefield that is high society, she also develops a love of gymnastics. This often gives Lady Windermere grief, as the little princess will often climb to high places that she really shouldn't. Manik, on the other hand, grows up in a big patchwork family made up of men, women, and children, all with their own stories to tell. While this means that he often doesn't have anything for himself, it also means that he intrinsically knows the value of loyalty and freedom. Growing up in the slums with a family of pickpockets, burglars, and thieves also means that he becomes very adept at thievery and lockpicking, among other things. As for Sonic, the majority of his childhood is spent living in a small, hidden valley several miles away from Mobotropolis. It's a beautiful place, completely untouched by Robotnik's corruption. As a result, Sonic not only learns to value the beauty of nature, but also develops a bit of a rebellious streak. After all, there's not really anyone around to tell him what to do aside from his parents and the occasional visitor from the Resistance. One of whom actually ends up becoming a much more permanent figure in Sonic's life. Sir Charles Hedgehog, the younger brother of the late king and one of the main leaders of the resistance branch in Mobotropolis, is told of his nephew not long after the couple move. None of the adults tell the Blue Blur about his heritage, deciding to wait until he's a little older before dropping that particular bombshell. Sonic doesn't know that Charles is his biological uncle, but he does still see him as an uncle and calls him Uncle Chuck, and they make a sweet and happy little family, even if Sonic keeps ignoring the don't run in the house rule. Unfortunately, these happy, relatively peaceful times come to a swift and harsh end when Sonic is 8. Because one night, Sonic's parents receive a warning from their friends that Robotnik has discovered their location and is sending a capture squadron to apprehend them. Charles is on his way, but he's not Sonic. He'll never be able to make it to them before the squadron does. They could attempt to escape, but what about Sonic? There's no way that the adults could outrun the robots. Sonic could, but not if he's slowing himself down to keep pace with his parents. And that would just lead Robotnik right to not just the prince, but their son, their child, the sweet, smart, rebellious, and funny little boy that they've loved and raised for the last 6 years. And so, the two parents do the only thing they can to protect their son. With tears in their eyes, they tell Sonic to run as fast as he can to his Uncle Chuck's place, assuring him that they'll be okay. Sonic, not fully understanding what's happening, asks if they really want him to run. Smiling, his father nods, telling Sonic to show them just how fast his little legs can go. Eyes brimming with frightened tears, but burning with determined fire, Sonic nods. Smiling lovingly down at him, the parents wrap their arms around each other as they step back, giving Sonic room to rev up. "We love you, son." With those final words, Sonic speeds off, his body nothing but a bright blue blur as he races towards his Uncle Chuck's. He doesn't know what's going on, but if anyone can help, it'll be him. However, before he is even on the other side of the forest separating the homes, the echoes of a crash reaches his ears, causing him to screech to a halt. Turning back, he lets out a strangled gasp as he spots the bright orange glow of fire coming from his home. Fear twisting his insides, he turns back, hoping that his parents are okay. Bursting through the tree line, he's only just in time to see a robo-container flying away from his burning home. Sonic stands there, unable to tear his eyes away from the burning pyre that was once his home, tears falling down his face as he sobs. It's all gone. His parents, his home, everything they built went into their home. Would anything be left after the smoke cleared? A photo? A brooch? Anything? He spins around as a familiar voice calling his name breaks through the haze of sorrow. There, at the tree line, eyes filled with worry and fear, is Uncle Chuck. Sonic runs to his uncle, throwing his arms around his shoulders and clinging to him in a desperate search for comfort. Charles wraps his arms around his nephew, gently patting his back as he whispers assurances that it's going to be okay. Then, with a final look back at the blaze that had once been a home, he turns and begins to carry Sonic back to his house. They can't stay here. Now that Robotnik knows about the valley, it's only a matter of time before he returns to turn it into another factory or roboticization facility. It isn't safe here. Not anymore. With Mobius being an island country, in a similar vein to our world's Japan, Indonesia, or Hawaii, there are still some islands where Eggman has yet to spread his power, and thus remain power bases for the Resistance. One of these islands, South Island, has been made into one of the Resistance's primary safe houses, the other being West Side Island. This is for a few reasons. Their distance from Core Island, where Robotnik's center of power is, the exceptionally high chaos signatures of both islands, which not only cause the island's natural landscape to be somewhat confusing, but also creates chao gardens, and the abundance of resources all make these two islands the ideal place not only to be bases of power for the Resistance, but also safe places for the Resistance members to hide their children. As such, it is South Island that Charles takes his nephew to after the loss of his adoptive parents. The loss is hard on both of them, with Sonic being quiet, hardly speaking a word to anyone, and Charles being completely lost on what to do. Until one day, the little hedgehog meets a young lion by the name of Seires. The lion is trying to figure out how to get a music player to work, and Sonic helps him. The two quickly become friends thanks to their shared love of music, an art form that has been recently outlawed by Robotnik. Due to Seires having been living in Mobotropolis until recently, he's able to tell Sonic about how bad it is there. Hearing all of this, and realizing that even more families will be broken the way his had been if Robotnik isn't stopped, Sonic begins training. Running as fast as he can from one end of Green Hill to the other and then trying to beat his time, spin dashing into a tree in order to build up his strength. His uncle quickly catches on to what Sonic is doing and, realizing that he won't be able to stop him, decides to train him properly instead. Even if it means Sonic becomes involved in the Resistance much sooner than Charles would have liked, at least it means that he's not going to be doing anything stupidly dangerous. The years pass, and despite being far from Core Island, the effects of Robotnik's rule still reach their sanctuary, one way or another. Be it the little two-tailed fox that Cyrus's family takes in after his parents are captured by Robotnik in a raid, or when Sonic and his uncle move back to Mobotropolis, which has recently been renamed to Robotropolis, so Charles can resume his role as head of the Mobotropolis branch. And Sonic, now 13, can become a fully active member of the Resistance. Time and fate ever marches forward, and so it is, 4 months after returning to Robotropolis, that fate catches up to our three heroes. Sonic stands outside of Robotnik's facilities, which is currently testing a new force field, a new method of protecting the Tyrant's factories, which Sonic is all too happy to smash. Speeding up as fast as he can, he forces his way through the force field, causing it to destabilize and shut down. With that done, he completes the second half of his mission, scattering mini explosives all over the factory to blow the whole place sky high. Feeling mighty pleased with himself, he returns home, fully prepared to take a 4-hour nap. However, when he returns, he finds his uncle sitting at the table waiting for him, an unopened letter in front of him. Confused and strangely nervous, he asks his uncle what's up. Charles looks up at him before sighing and asking Sonic to sit down. Sonic does so, now feeling worried. There's a moment of silence before Charles takes a deep breath and asks Sonic if he's ever wondered about his birth family. Not understanding where this conversation is going, Sonic shrugs. Sure, he's wondered, but he's always figured that Ma, Pa, and Chuck hadn't known anything about them. If they had, they would have said something by now. Charles sighs as he puts his head in his hands at Sonic's answer. He apologizes to Sonic, explaining that if he'd known Sonic had been wondering about them, he would have told him. He turns back to his nephew, explaining that his brother was Sonic's father, so he is Sonic's uncle. But that's not all. He pulls out a photo and hands it to Sonic, telling him that it's the photo that was taken on the day that Sonic was born. Sonic's eyes widen as he looks at the 5 hedgehogs in the photo. One is a woman with purple fur and quills, emerald green eyes just like his, and a golden tiara atop her head. Next to her is a man with light sea green quills and red eyes. The man is holding 2 newborn hedgehogs while the woman holds a third. The one in the woman's arms is clearly a little girl with hot pink fur and quills. The 2 in the man's arms are little boys. One is soft Kelly green with a messy mop of spiky bangs, while the other is a very familiar shade of blue. I have siblings? Charles chuckles. Of course that would be what Sonic chooses to focus on while missing the other thing that everyone else would fixate on. Sonic frowns at him in confusion, either not understanding what Charles is referring to or not stating what could possibly be more important than the fact that he apparently has siblings. Shaking his head in fond exasperation, he gestures for Sonic to look closer at his mother. He does so, trying to see what his uncle clearly seems to think is so important, but doesn't see anything new. Well, he supposes it is weird for someone to be wearing a tiara right after having triplets, but wait. That tiara looks familiar. It looks like the tiara he saw in the history books his uncle has lying around the house. The one that the royal family wore before Robotnik took over. But that would mean... Holy chaos! Dad married royalty?! Charles lets out a full belly laugh at Sonic's reaction, then waits patiently for the other shoe to drop. It doesn't take as long as the first one, as Sonic runs a hand through his quills, murmuring that if his dad married the queen, and he's their kid, then that makes him a prince. And it makes his brother and sister a prince and princess. Charles nods in confirmation before his eyes fall back on the unopened letter on the table. Taking a deep breath, he explains to Sonic that, while he was on his mission, his mother brought a letter for him. He holds the letter out to Sonic, who takes it with a shaky hand. Swallowing hard, he opens it and begins to read. It starts with a simple but heartfelt apology for not being able to be there for him, before segueing into telling him about how his siblings are in Robotropolis as well. It ends with a simple instruction for him to go to the music club on Harmonia Street in order to meet each other. Sonic's heart leaps into his throat. He knows that club! It's the one that the Chaotix run! Not willing to wait another moment, Sonic turns to run out the door, calling over his shoulder to his uncle that he's going to meet his siblings and will bring them back to meet him later. It doesn't take Sonic long to arrive at the club that is his home away from home. Walking in, he greets Vector at the bar, who comments that he didn't know Sonic was coming down tonight. He asks if he's picking up something for Charles. Sonic shakes his head, telling the Croc that he's here to meet up with someone. Well, 2 someones. Vector nods, figuring that Sonic must either be meeting up with Seires and Tails or some new contacts. He then tells Sonic that if he needs to kill some time before they show up, the stage is free. The smile that Sonic directs at him could light up all of Robotropolis. If Vector weren't already used to the Blue Blur's antics, he wouldn't have been able to understand a word of the thank you he rushed out as he raced to the stage. And, more importantly, the guitar on the stage. Picking it up, Sonic begins to strum out the notes of a song that he's been working on. As he's just about to start looking around the club for a shock of green or pink, he hears the drum set to his left beating in perfect rhythm with his guitar. Turning, he comes face to face with a green hedgehog that is the same age as him, with a mop of spiky bangs, brown eyes, an orange vest, and a medallion like his. The green hedgehog locks eyes with him, and in an instant they know. They're both here for the same reason. Before they can say a single word, a feminine voice speaks up from the front of the stage. Looking over, they see a pink hedgehog with bright red eyes standing just off of the stage looking up at them. She too is wearing a medallion. With a smile, she asks if they would mind having another player. Smiling, Sonic reaches out a hand to help her up, as the green hedgehog tells her that he thinks this band needs a third member. The pink hedgehog moves to the keyboard, and, as if it is what they were born to do, they play. In perfect sync, in perfect harmony. As the final note is played, the three smile at each other before making their way to one of the tables. Sonic smiles and says that he guesses that they also received letters telling them to meet here. After receiving confirmation, they begin a round of introductions, starting with the pink one who introduces herself as Sonia, then the green one who introduces himself as Manic, before finally Sonic finishes them off. Sonia sighs as she dreamily tells them that she's always wanted to know about her birth family. With a big smile, she asks if they think that their mother will also be coming to meet them, since she is the one that wrote the letters. Sonic is just about to tell her that he doesn't think that's an option when they're approached by a wizened green anteater in a purple robe. Body rigid and on guard, Sonic asks the stranger who he is. The anteater tells them that he's the Oracle of Delphius, an associate of their mother. He was asked to come here in her stead to inform them of their destinies. The Oracle explains to Sonia and Manic that they are the children of Queen Alina and the rightful heirs to Mobius. It is their destiny to reclaim what Robotnik stole, return freedom to the people, and restore what has been lost. But before they can do that, there is much that they need to learn. Not just about each other, but also about themselves. And for that, they must embark on a quest to South Island and gather the Chaos Emeralds that lie dormant there. Before the siblings can ask any further information, there's a loud crash. Spinning around, the trio spot a hole in the wall of the club, a SWAT bot standing in it. The bot informs everyone in the club that they are all under arrest for illegal public performances and unregistered venue usage. Before the bot can finish its speech, however, a kunai smashes into its visor, sinking into the main processor and causing it to shut down. Espio drops down from the ceiling where he'd been hiding, telling everyone to evacuate the building, as more SWAT bots will surely be on their way. The triplets turn to the Oracle, preparing to tell him to escape, only to find that he's disappeared. Shaking his head, Sonic instead turns to Vector, preparing to offer his help in getting everyone out. But Vector cuts him off, telling Sonic to just get him and his friends out. Charles will have his head if he lets anything happen to Sonic on his watch. Nodding in understanding, Sonic grabs hold of his siblings before zooming out of the hole in the wall. He doesn't stop until they're at the dock, far away from the commotion. There, he puts his siblings down and begins to massage his arms, complaining that he's not used to carrying anything heavier than a backpack when running. Sonia and Manic both stare at him in shock, asking just what the heck that was. Sonic tilts his head, asking if they mean the speed. At their nod, Sonic simply shrugs, saying that it's just something he's always been able to do. He then looks around with a thoughtful frown. He tells them that he has some friends that work around here who can get them a ride on a ship to South Island. Sonia protests, saying that she hasn't even packed anything. But Sonic tells her that the ships that go between Core Island and South Island are on a strict schedule, and the next shipment is tonight. If they don't go now, they won't be able to go until next month. Manic shakes his head, making a comment about cutting it close, while Sonia questions why their mother couldn't have sent out the letters last week, or even just yesterday. Rolling his eyes, Sonic grabs their hands and begins to drag them to the shipping office, telling them to walk now, complain later. Within the hour, Sonic, Manic, and Sonia find themselves in the hull of a large container ship heading out to South Island. It's as they're settling down for the long trip that Sonic groans and slaps his forehead. At his siblings' confused looks, Sonic explains that he'd forgotten to get a rain check with Uncle Chuck about introducing them to him. Uncle Chuck? Sonic nods his head enthusiastically, telling him that it's not just a name, he's their actual uncle. Sonia asks how he ended up living with their uncle and is startled when the Blue Blur's jovial expression instantly falls as a shadow passes over his eyes. Before either she or Manic can ask what's wrong, Sonic turns to them with a smile that is far too tight to be genuine. He tells them that it's a bit of a long story, and that he'll tell them about it later. Right now, he needs their help in figuring out a way to keep him from getting grounded. Sonia smiles and suggests that Sonic write their uncle a letter explaining the situation and ask his friends to deliver it when they go back. Manic snickers, asking if she's forgiven their mother for the late delivery of their letters already. This earns him a light shove before he asks if any of them even have a pen or paper, to which Sonia rolls her eyes before reaching into a pocket and pulling out an entire letter-writing set complete with fountain pen. A lady of noble birth is always prepared for when she needs to write a letter. Sonic has never been a big fan of water, but after spending the last few days in the hull of a ship, he's going to be steering clear of it as best he can for the next few days. But at long last, the trio are finally on South Island. However, just as they're stepping onto the lush green fields of Green Hills, they hear frightened cries for help. Grabbing onto his siblings, Sonic rushes towards the sound. Within moments, they see exactly what's causing the cries for help. SWAT bots and badniks galore flit around the area, chasing after resistance members and civilians alike. Sonic places his siblings down, preparing to leap into the fray on his own, only to be stopped by a hand on his shoulder. Sonia gives her brother a stern look, reminding him that they're all here together. They fight together or not at all. Sonic's eyes widen slightly before he gives a small, soft smile and nods. Then, together, they dash into the fray. The first thing that Sonic does is spin dash into one of the badniks, causing it to break apart. When he comes to a stop, he hears Sonia shout for him to look out. Turning around, he sees a SWAT bot preparing to shoot at him, only for Sonia to come flying in, kicking the robot in the head. The force of her kick is enough to separate the appendage from the rest of the body, sending it flying. Sonic's eyes widen in shock as he turns to his sister. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." Sonia is about to answer when Manic shouts for them to duck. On reflex they do, just in time for a pair of solid metal drumsticks to fly over their heads and embed themselves in a pair of buzz bombers. The two badniks explode, sending the drumsticks flying. Manic flies past his siblings on a hoverboard to quickly grab his sticks before they get lost. Looking up at him, Sonic asks where he got that, to which Manic grins and says, "Robotnik." Sonia gives her brother an unhappy look, telling him that he shouldn't be stealing. But Sonic simply grins, saying that it's not stealing if it's Robotnik. Sonia pinches the bridge of her nose as her brothers grin at each other. Realizing that she's not going to be winning this argument anytime soon, she instead turns to Sonic, asking if he knows where the Chaos Emeralds that they're supposed to be looking for are. Sonic puts a hand on his chin in thought. He explains to his siblings that the Chaos Emeralds have always been something of a legend, not just on Mobius but all across the world, but they haven't been seen in centuries. Some say that it's because people would incite wars over them, so the gods decided to destroy or seal them away. If the Oracle thinks that they're here, then they're probably hidden away somewhere. Maybe in one of the underground caverns? Manic cuts off his train of thought, telling his siblings that for something to be hidden for that long, it'd need to be either somewhere no one can get to, or somewhere in plain sight. Somewhere that everyone sees it, but doesn't realize what it is. Manic's words trigger something at the back of Sonic's memory and his eyes widen. No way. It couldn't be that obvious, could it? His siblings turn to him, asking if he's got an idea. Sonic makes a face like he's not sure whether to burst out laughing or smack his head in disgust. He tells them that he might have an idea, but they're going to need to get to the end of Green Hill first, as the entrance to the place he's thinking of is there. With that, the trio take off, making their way to the end of Green Hill and smashing any robots that they come across on the way. Eventually, they reach the end of Green Hill, where Sonic leads his siblings to what looks like a tall cliff face. Sonia asks if they're supposed to climb this, only for Sonic to shake his head and reach into a hole in the rocky expanse. After a little jiggling around, he gives a satisfied "Ha!" There's a click and a section of the rock next to him rolls to the side, revealing what looks like a green portal. Shocked and confused, Manic asks what in the world this is. Sonic turns to his siblings with a grin. This, dear brother mine, is what makes South Island one of the best places in the world. With that, he walks through the portal, startling his siblings into rushing after him. After they stop seeing stars, they look around to see a beautiful field surrounded on all sides by tall mountains. Flowers bloom in patches everywhere, and trees dot the landscape, while a small little lake sparkles with clean fresh water to the side. In the center of the field stands what looks like a statue with a plaque and a stone gem on top. All around the field, small blue creatures with pink wings wander about, either flying or trotting along on their feet. Some have even decided to swim in the lake. It looks like a mini slice of paradise. Sonia and Manic are broken out of their wonder by Sonic's laughter. He turns to his siblings with an amused but understanding smile, telling them that he had the same reaction when he saw this place for the first time. Sonia is the first to recover, asking what this place is. Sonic smiles, telling them that this is a chao garden. Chows used to live all over Mobius, but after Robotnik took over, they were forced into hiding, and now they can only be found in gardens like this one. He leads them over to the statue in the center of the garden, telling them that he's seen these statues a million times. Everyone on the island has, but he's never thought much of it. They're just old monuments to that old legend. As they reach the statue, he points out the plaque to them, reciting the words written on it off by heart. The power of the Chaos Emeralds shall forever wait for those who seek it. Sing, O seekers of chaos, sing and awaken the power of the heart. Manic smirks, saying that they should have brought the instruments from the club with them. Sonic nods while rubbing his medallion between his fingers, saying that it would be nice if they could use their medallions. After all, they already look like musical instruments. As soon as the words are out of his mouth, his medallion bursts into blue light, startling everyone. In moments, Sonic's medallion is gone, replaced with a blue electric guitar. The siblings all stare at each other, until Manic places a hand over his own medallion, causing it to burst into green light. As the light shoots forth to hit the ground in front of him, causing a drum set to appear, Sonia follows her brothers' lead. Her medallion bursts into pink light, and in a moment she finds herself holding a keyboard. Well, that certainly takes care of the musical instrument problem, and explains why their medallions are so special. Turning back to the statue, the three fall into the same harmony that they had back in the club. It's almost like there's some kind of link between them, letting them know exactly what the others are going to play and how to harmonize with them. As the final note is played, the gem at the top of the statue bursts into light. Then, like the shell of an egg breaking away, the outer layer of stone falls away, revealing a green emerald. Reaching up, Sonic plucks the gem from its pedestal before turning to his siblings with a grin. One down. They're just about to leave the garden when a voice that Sonic knows like the back of his hand calls out to them. I had a feeling I'd find you here. Long time no see, Sonic. And that, everyone, is where I'm going to leave this story for now. Join me next time as we see Sonic reunite with an old friend, the siblings get some news about happenings back in Robotropolis, and continue their quest for the Chaos Emeralds. I'm Rune. See you next chapter.